Hey everybody, please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. So, popular YouTuber and political commentator Steven Crowder recently came under a lot of scrutiny for a leaked video that showed him verbally abusing his wife, who was 8 months pregnant with twins. And this is one piece in a saga that he is involved in regarding different issues he's having with other people in the political party, such as Candace Owens, a now very messy divorce with his wife. But one thing that I really want to focus on is how this particular scenario opens up a larger discussion around gender roles. But before I get into it, let's check out the video and then we'll break it down.
I drew a boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel. You are not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There is no groceries. I'd be happy.
Steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man respect? How do you man receive love and respect?
Respect.
No. How do you man respect? No, you're not taking the car.
Steven,
You're not taking the car.
Steven,
You are not
then
taking
I
the
will
car.
ask someone to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not a threat, Steven.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Steven,
Do you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Steven.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
Steven.
Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
Hillary,
Steven?
you give up so easily.
I'm
I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit, okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you, and the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it, you go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right, we're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. I said as a wife. Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything. You just said I love you, I'm committed to you. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just
walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take that in.
That video was really hard to watch. As you can see, she is visibly pregnant. He is sitting down on the couch, smoking a cigar, yelling all kinds of demands. And the backstory behind this is that they're basically arguing over the fact that she was concerned about handling the dog's medication because of fears of it being toxic for a pregnant woman. But instead of him doing it himself, he ordered her to put on some gloves and do it anyway. And then there's this whole conversation about her taking the car. For some reason, they only have one car, although they probably have plenty enough money to have two. So there's obviously a lot of different stuff going on there, and this comes on top of different allegations that have been made about him being rather controlling and hard to work with. So ultimately it's not a good look. But the reason I thought this was important to highlight is one of the constant pushbacks I hear today now, especially in the dating and mating market, is one of the reasons women don't want to be submissive is because they are afraid of being in scenarios like this, right? Where they will be controlled, where they will be abused, when they are vulnerable, they will be disrespected, and they will oftentimes take some of the most egregious scenarios of abuse or egregious scenarios of misuse and use it as a reason to say, gender roles are bad, submission is bad, it's all bad, it's all bad. Now, to break this down, obviously, I do not agree with that scenario. From what we can see in that video clip, it does not seem like he is operating according to how God would want a husband to treat his wife. But again, when you're talking about gender roles and you're talking about a woman being submissive, and he alluded to this in the video about, you know, having discipline and respect and all the things that, you know, a husband would want and warrant if you are operating according to God's design. There are some clear boundaries around that. And so I want to reference two scriptures that I think a lot of Christians are probably aware of, and that clearly break down what gender roles would look like when you're talking about how to actually treat one another. And so one comes out of Ephesians, and it says, it starts by saying, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Already you're talking about respect one another because you love God. Then it goes on to say, wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Now, usually men love this verse. Different Christian men I know love this verse, see no issue with it. Well, you know, the verse is pretty clear. It encourages wives to ultimately submit to their husbands, to respect them as the head of the household, but also remember that it starts off by saying submit one into another. And so an important foundation for that is a reverence for Christ, a reverence for God, a respect for one another. That is a foundational principle when we're talking about gender roles and when we're talking about this idea of a woman submitting to the man in her life. Then it goes on to read, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to sanctify her, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a glorious church without stain or wrinkle or any such blemish, but holy and blameless. So notice after it tells women to submit to their husbands, it then goes on to tell the husbands to actually love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave up his body for the church, sacrificed himself for the church. So really, if we want to look at the idea of gender roles and who serves what role and who is to do what, biblically, wives are told to submit to their husbands, right? But husbands are told to lay down their life for their wife. That is a whole other level of responsibility. And quite frankly, that's a whole other level of sacrifice. So really, if you're looking at gender roles, which a lot of these ladies are scared of, it is the man from a biblical standpoint who actually has the heavier burden. He has the higher call. He has the charge to sacrifice himself. He has the charge literally to love his wife the way that Christ loved the church and giving his body, his life for it. And so when I hear them talk about, I don't want to submit, I don't want this and that, they're doing it based upon the understanding that they're actually going to be abused and they're going to be taken advantage of. But if you actually understand what the intention was from a biblical standpoint, if you understand its intention, it's actually quite freeing. It's actually for your safety, right? You're respecting your husband. There's this mutual respect, but actually it is the man that has the higher call. It is actually the man who has the heavier burden to sacrifice himself. And as a woman, I'm not trying to sign up for that. So it's like, I would much rather the charge of just submitting and be respecting than versus laying down my life. Like, if you really think about the ramifications of it, it's actually quite large. Going to 1 Peter, it kind of breaks this down again clearly. It tells women to honor God by being submissive to their husbands, by calling them Lord, right? Essentially as Sarah did in the Old Testament. And so again, going back to reverencing, honoring, submitting, recognizing his role and respecting that. But then it goes on to tell the husbands, look, be considerate, be delicate, be gentle with your wives. And if you disrespect her, your prayers are going to be hindered. So what people forget, I think, about this gender role dynamic is that both roles have a part to play. Really interesting thing I thought about this entire video Stephen Crowder, as a man who ascribes to biblical principles and ascribes to trying to live his life as somebody who believes in the Bible or whatever, we can look at the actions and see that they do not align with ultimately what God intended. As mentioned before, gender roles, in my opinion, are about respecting the design that God created. God created man for a particular purpose, and God created woman for a particular purpose. And he knows the best way we can operate together. And so when you're thinking about man being the head, or you're thinking about woman submitting, it's not for control. It's not for your domination. It's actually so that things can run smoothly and things can happen according to the intention that God himself created. It is for freedom as a woman. As I mentioned before, do you want the role of submitting, or do you want the role of laying down your life for your spouse, right? To me, I'd rather just submit. But so again, those are some of the different concerns that I hear around submission, around women being afraid to submit. And what they don't understand is that actually, no, submission is for your freedom, and submission is for your benefit. Now, important thing to understand though, is that this is all based upon two people who have already given their life to God. Apart from that, outside of that, I don't know what to tell you, right? Then it can start to get kind of weird, and then you can start to see all kind of domination control tactics that we do see. So I think an important note to understand as a woman is that you don't need to be submitting to just everybody. You don't need to just find a bum off the side of the road and submit to him just because he's man. It's like, no, like obviously there are clear guidelines as to who you should be submitting to and how it should work. But based upon what God intended it, submission is not supposed to be about control and domination. It is not supposed to be about you being abused and man being able to do whatever he wants and there's no consequences. That goes completely against what the Bible is about, what God is about, what overall principle is about. And it is not reflective of God's heart. So when I think of gender roles, I think of peace, I think of clarity, I think of order, I think of God's design, and I find freedom in it. But I think it's important to distinguish between abuse and between what God intended. And this scenario to me, I think, was a prime example of what happens when somebody is operating outside of God's design. And so again, a way to avoid that is to actually make sure that you're with somebody who is walking devoutly according to God's principles, not just with words. Because like I said, people can say stuff all the time, every single day. But ultimately, the best way to know that somebody is devout is to look at their life, look at what they're doing, look at how they're acting, look at the way that they're portraying. And it doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. We all make mistakes. But you can tell when somebody is genuine about something and they really believe in something versus if they're just trying to make money, do a grift, or if they're just trying to be prideful and prove that they're better than everybody else. Like you can just tell that stuff. So anyways, that is what I got out of the story. But what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Do you agree with gender roles? Do you think they're outdated? Do you think they're archaic? Let me know. Leave your questions, comments, concerns in the comment section below. Thank you so much for listening if you've gotten this far, and we'll talk later. Bye.